Yes, let's bring in Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson podcast. Good to see you, Ben. Have you ever seen presidential coattails like this? I mean, it's just within his party so far, but within his party, I've never seen anything. Maybe a little bit with Reagan, but not this much.
Reagan early on, obviously, you want his endorsement, but I don't think there's any time in my political life, in my lifetime, where we have seen a president make it so clear that you desperately need his endorsement to win, and that you can knock off incumbents that have been there for decades within your own party. And the reason why is it's not just because it's Donald Trump. It's the agenda that Donald Trump stands for. It's the reason why he was able to get back in the White House after being gone for 4 years. And so what the American people have said very clearly again, they trust this president. They believe in an American first policy. And there's a lot of Republicans who are sick and tired of sending people to Washington that end up fighting their own team, fighting against Trump, fighting against Speaker Johnson, instead of fighting the radicals on the left, the Marxists, the socialists, the communists, the Hakeem Jeffries, and what they stand for. So I think this is a really clear moment going into the midterms that not only is President Trump in good shape, his agenda is in great shape. And I think this is why, if you're a conservative right now and you look at what you're witnessing, you feel actually pretty good heading into the midterms instead of terrified, as the media and many others want you to believe.
Yeah, but a lot of voters, when they go to fill up their car at the gas tank, are not so happy about things. And how long does the president have? What would you say for the Republican Party in general going into the midterms? I mean, if this thing gets wrapped up in a couple of months, I think the economy's strong enough. So, and we saw what happened when we thought we had a deal about a month ago to open up the straits. Oil came down tremendously in one shot in 24 hours. But if the more it drags on, the more concern there is. What if the war is still going on going into the midterms?
Look, if the war's still going on when we go into the midterms, it's going to be a really, really tough night for Republican candidates, because the American people go back to that simple saying in politics. It's the economy, stupid, right? The president, I do think, has probably a couple months here at the most of a runway here to figure this out and get it done. And the reason why I say that is two-part. One, once it's over, the Strait of Hormuz opens back up, and the oil is going to be flooding out of the Middle East that has just been stockpiling up in so many countries. They desperately need to sell that oil, not only because of capacity issues, but because they desperately need the money as well. And I think you'll see the prices come down very quickly. I hope that the president can get this wrapped up soon. But I also think the American people that understand Trump understand this is a national security issue. You cannot allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and they're riding with the president on that. But so, you know, you talk time here. Look at the summer months ahead. I think he's got 2 more months to get this thing done. I think he knows that. And look, Iran is in a bad spot financially as well. And if they're capping their wells, that's going to drastically change what their economy looks like even after this is all over.
I just want to focus on one other race in Texas, Ken Paxton. Now, the president has endorsed him, and but he has some baggage. Of course, he survived an impeachment procedure, but he's still got some questions about how he became rich, et cetera. Here's what former Speaker McCarthy said about it. Kevin McCarthy was on a little earlier on Fox News. I want to roll that tape and get your reaction. Roll it.
Yes, Paxton can win, but it's going to take resources to make that happen. Because if you look at how much the Democrat has raised, like $40 million, and remember, the most powerful money in a campaign is what the candidate actually raises, because they get to buy TV time at a lower rate. If you have to offset that, you got to spend 2 to 3 times as much as the candidate has to try to even equal that out.
So, Ben, is Paxton going to get the money?
Yes. And look, Kevin McCarthy, with all due respect, has no idea what he's talking about here in Texas. Look, they threw the kitchen sink at Ken Paxton in the primary, and it didn't work. You had literally John Cornyn spend more than $100 a vote compared to about $2 and change for every vote that Ken Paxton got. He's been elected statewide. The people of Texas trust him. And all of the bad news on Paxton was used by Cornyn. So using it again, it's white noise coming from the Democrats. And look, let's also be clear. You got a crazy candidate in the Democratic side that barely would be almost electable in a place like California. This is not going to fly in Texas. Ken Paxton is going to end up winning this thing. He's going to end up winning it because the people already like him. They trust him. They didn't like Cornyn. Let's also be clear about that. He was not a strong ally of the president. He wasn't an advocate for the president's agenda. He barely did what he needed to do to try to get reelected, and it was a disaster. So I'm not worried about Paxton.
Okay.
I said to the White House, I think he's going to win. I think he's a big winner here, and it's going to be great for the state.
Very quick final question concerning Cuba. The president's talking about it. The DOJ's indicted Fidel Castro's brother, Raul. I just want to play a little soundbite from the president on Cuba. Get your reaction to that. Roll that one.
What's coming next for Cuba?
Well, we're going to see. It's a failing nation. You see that. It's falling apart. They have no oil. They have no money. It's a failing nation, so I just can't tell you that. But we're there to help. We're there to help the families, the people. There won't be escalation. I don't think there needs to be.
And quickly, the president's lost a lot of the Latino support that he had. Could what's happened in Venezuela, what might happen in Cuba and elsewhere, affect him positively with Latino voters?
No doubt about it. And you look at the difference between his policy and go back to Barack Obama. He sat at a game next to the man that we just indicted for murder. There couldn't be any bigger difference between Republicans on law enforcement and Democrats on law enforcement. This will be an election year issue. And I think what you're getting really close to now is a free Cuba for the first time in our lifetime. That would be incredible for the people there. And look, the president was really smart. He isolated them and shut them out to the world. And now that regime is teetering right now, and it could be in the next days or weeks.
Let's hope. Ben Ferguson, thank you so much. Good to see you, my friend.